Hello everybody, it's Kimberly here. It's nice to connect with you today. I'm going to try to make this really short. I have Paul with me right now, and he wanted to address something that he found. We get comments on the video, and all comments we appreciate. We really enjoy it because sometimes the comments lead us to sort of topics that we need to discuss. And this comment was left on a channel that I had done from George. And I didn't really think much of it because people have questions. But yeah, he's saying that the questions come from a deeper place of misunderstanding and, this segregation idea about why some people and why not some other people. And he's saying that he saw a comment about, like this person didn't see this message from George when he lived, and he was wondering where it was from, and I answered that I channeled it, and this person was like, well, why doesn't he reach out to friends or family? Why are you able to channel, basically, and why can't he just talk to his friends and family? And Paul's saying that he read that, and it sort of opened up some feelings that he has had since he died about connecting with his loved ones. And he's saying that the short answer of it is that they do. The intimate and close relationships, especially family, husbands, wives, children, girlfriends, boyfriends, fiancés, partners, all of that are the very first contact that people who have passed away will try to make. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to channel this conversation because it is so raw. And when I channel a spirit, I do feel the emotion of that. And yeah, Paul's saying that when he read that comment, there was a lot of stuff that reopened with him, because he says when he passed away, the difficulty for him was that he could not reach the people that he loved, and I'm going to try not to cry, the people that he loved, because it is very difficult, he's saying, to get through the feelings of grief and sadness and shock and mourning for the people who have passed to make contact with their relatives. The most difficult part for me when I died was not being able to reach through that space. He said that was so thin to hug them and hold them and be with them. He says it wasn't because I couldn't, it was because I couldn't reach through the feelings that they had in regards to my sudden passing. He's saying that with anybody that is loved so intensely, the grief for that loss is that intense or more, and it creates this block where the communication can't, it's very one-sided. He's saying it's very frustrating for him to experience that. It's frustrating for a lot of people who pass away, suddenly, unexpectedly. He says, because here's the difference. It is just as hurtful for somebody who, had a long illness and passed away, and it was kind of expected. But he's saying the people who pass away in those ways have kind of, sort of, not always, because there's still the question, he says, about like the fear of death, but have always made peace with the fact that they are transitioning, they are dying, and they're going to a different place. When there is a death that is sudden and it's unexpected, that is like the most difficult. And there's a tendency sometimes for spirits to stay and linger a little bit longer to try to have that communication of, I mean, I don't have a choice here, I gotta go, he's saying. So he said he lingered around his family for, he says a good 2 to 3 weeks before he was ready to go all the way. He said when he read the comment, when Kim was on vacation and he went onto YouTube, because they all kind of check out the YouTube, it created, again, these raw feelings for him that he needed to discuss. It's not something, that he can't speak for George, but he did talk to George before he decided to talk on this. He said, it's not like he's gonna, try to stand on some sort of, pedestal and try to get communication. It works differently. If he can't speak directly to his loved ones, he's saying, I will hold them. He's saying my arms are incredibly large and big and can encircle many people at the same time to hold them in their grief. And when he holds people who grieve him close to him, their energy also kind of sucks that in and holds him as well. Because Paul, he's saying he had his own way to grieve what had happened when he passed away. As much as he understood, he still had a grieving process to get through. Even though he was surrounded by love, he was in heaven, it was welcoming, it was light, he was so connected to his loved ones that he also had to go through a process of what some would term grief. The connection, he's saying, for the passed away people and their loved ones is an intimate connection. It's a private connection. It's, he says some people, when they're having a baby, a couple, when they're having a baby in the delivery room, sometimes they want like a whole schwack of people in the room with them. And sometimes they just want, them and their partner, or them and their mother, or them and their kids, or whatever, to keep it that intimate. Same with grieving. He says Kim never reached out for any sort of information or, connect, like I'm talking to this person, I'm talking to this person, let me channel a message for you. That never happened because he kept that part of himself extremely private, because he holds those relationships extremely private. And whatever conversations or whatever happens after death between him and his loved ones remains sacred, remains private, remains very intimate. And that's not something that he says any dead person, he's saying, should have to have an excuse for, have to confirm for anybody, because he says, when I was alive, I kept that very private, and when I was dead, I kept that very private. Grieving is the communication for grieving between someone who has passed away and someone who is still alive is probably one of the most private situations that both parties can go through, because it is so personal. And he's saying to have to admit to somebody outside that wouldn't understand how any of that really works. He says no dead person would ever do that. That's just validating something that is very personal and private to both parties, and it's unnecessary, he's saying. He says, I don't normally get my back up he says, I welcome everybody's comments, bad or good, for any sort of channel that I do with Kim or with anybody if they're channeling me. However, when somebody questions the connection between anybody who has passed, he says, I have a lot of friends on this side and I keep them close like family, and I'm very protective. I have to say something. He's saying, I'm not going to shout from the rooftops through a medium on a YouTube platform to say hi to my family and friends. He said, George is not about to use a platform to stand on some sort of box or pedestal and use a medium to have that private conversation with family and friends. He says it's inappropriate, and it just doesn't happen that way. Mediums, he's saying mediums and channelers, sometimes they would like those intimate details of, the life they lived, those closest to them. What are those closest to them doing now? Sometimes they do. It's entertainment value. He tends to gravitate towards the mediums that are willing to work with him to teach and to leave the private life out of those conversations, because anybody who has their face out there does have a private life that people want the scoop in, he's saying, and it's just not going to happen. Yes, he says the spirits, him and his buddies, the spirit friends, will use mediums to say thank you to the fans and thank you to the public for their support and their love of them, because they still feel the love of them. But in terms of trying to get in touch with family, that's more of the human aspect. That's not necessarily anybody that somebody is channeling that they would ever ask somebody to do, because he says it's really, really inappropriate. Okay, he's saying when I first met Kim, I kept that part of myself away from her. I did not want her to know anything, and that still is a very private part of my life. He's saying that the only way that any medium would meet any of my family members is I so chose to, and that happened in the dream state, because that's where things would be more open and available, with more of an understanding of what is really going on. And I have met roundtable members. I have met their family in the dream state. I have hung out with family members in the dream state, because there's no real ego there. There's no real, we can just meet on this equal level where nobody has to prove each other. And he says there's a lot of spirits who are very sensitive to the way they died and putting up, he says, any sort of communication. They're just very extremely hesitant about that. And he's saying when Corey met Kim, Corey Monteith, when Corey met Kim, he was extremely hesitant with introducing himself. He said because he knew what Kim did. I brought him in because I knew he had a story to tell that would teach people something. But Corey was extremely hesitant in meeting Kim. And he said he's saying it took a good, he's having trouble in human time, but he's saying it took a good 3 to 5 days for Corey to, he says, man up and introduce himself to Kim. And actually, he didn't introduce himself to me. I said, what the hell are you following me around for? If you want to talk to me, come talk to me. Like, I'm a safe place for you to talk to. So, like, I'm talking right now, I'm not channeling. I had to sort of convince Corey that, yes, this is okay. You can talk to me. This is not entertainment news. If you have something to say to me, you can say it. It's a safe place. Okay, Kim and I have a very, very strict rule in regards to the work that we do, where I won't introduce Kim to somebody who has just passed away, because sudden death, there's things that we need to learn in heaven, if that's the term you want to call it, and there's things that Kim just doesn't want to connect to. And that's true. I don't want to connect to somebody who previously died, because there's still shit going on there that it happens a lot quicker, the settling of all of that dust. However, I would rather not, because on earth there's still a lot of curiosity. How did they die? Blah, 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 the rumor mill. And there's also a lot of raw emotion involved, and being so sensitive to that and having to suck that up when talking to them, because when I'm talking to somebody who has recently passed, I do have a tendency to suck up the energies of everybody that misses them, and it doesn't feel good for me. So I don't do that. And he's agreeing. He says, I am very protective of that, and I don't introduce Kim to anybody who has just suddenly died. There have only been 3 instances where I had spoken to somebody who recently passed, and I was not comfortable with that. He's saying, yeah, and he agrees, and he's saying that Benjamin Cole, because he had such a huge brotherly connection to Benjamin Cole Brown, he introduced Cole to me quite quickly after he had passed. I think it was 10 days or something that I had spoken to Cole. Cole was very hesitant. He would not come to me. I had to go to him in a place that he felt safer to speak with me. So part of his heaven, he still remained in the Haiti. He still remained in what looked like Haiti. And so I had to go to him over there to talk with him over there. Paul saying Anton was very different for Kim. Anton has a connection to Kim outside of who he was as Anton. He still comes to Kim as Anton. But he said that, yeah, Anton was another one, and I'm agreeing. Yeah, Anton was another one who introduced himself to me, because Anton has a very close connection with Simon. And so Anton came to me, and it was actually very light. When I spoke to Anton, it was really okay. It was very, very light. There was no hesitation. There was no worry. There was no apprehension. He was very different than Benjamin Cole Brown. When I met Anton, I saw an article. I didn't even know who he was. And I saw an article in People magazine that he had passed away. And he literally came out of the computer screen and said, hello, it's me, you want to talk? So that's how I met Anton. And then the other one, and Paul's just sitting back, and he's got his chin in his fingers, and he's nodding. He's it was Naomi Judd. And I did that for the group session. And there was a reason that I connected with her so quickly, is because we have a very celestial connection as well. So those are the only 3. He's yeah, it's a very, he's saying sometimes he can't get the words out about it, because he still feels so incredibly protective of his loved ones on earth, as well as all people who have passed suddenly, because it was so sudden and shocking. He says it brings people to their knees. It brings them to knees in guilt, in grief, sometimes guilt. I just wish I had another moment. I just wish I could hug them once again. I just saw them 20 minutes ago. How the fuck could this happen, And it's still very raw for him, When you die suddenly, you're not really ready to go. You know what I mean? So he says, to make a long story short, yes, we do reach out to family. However, they are not in the position to believe that there is a continuation of life when death has come so sudden. It's just such a sudden ending, and it's put the shock value in people. And he says he's not going to get into it, but his family has shared instances where they have known I have been around. He says they have known that I have been around, and they couldn't question it. He says spirits are better able to show signs more frequently, probably about, for everybody it's different. Sometimes it's right away, they can feel it, like they can feel like they're not alone, and sometimes it takes a couple weeks. But there's always the signs of the flickering lights, the tingles down the spine, the pressure on the back, because he says, I'm really good with people feeling pressure, my hand on their back or my hand on their shoulder. They're really good at feeling that. He says they're really good at seeing me wink. He had this thing about winking and sticking out his tongue. He says they're really good at seeing that. And there would be certain animals that he likes to connect with. The jaybird. He has like sort of a special relationship with the jaybird, and so he likes to come as any sort of jaybird. And when people see the jaybird, that's, and they don't really see that bird flying around all that much. Like magpies I have everywhere, but if I see a blue jay, guaranteed it's Paul. So he says if anybody sees a kind of jaybird hanging around, that would definitely be him. He says us dead guys, us dead people, have really good ways of showing up for those who we've loved and loved us back. We have really good ways of showing up for them and validating that, yes, we still got their back. But that validation isn't something that some sort of, he's saying, medium on YouTube can shout from the rooftops, because that validation is something that, symbolism from when they were growing up. Special animal symbolisms. Oh, that was their favorite animal, and now I'm seeing it everywhere. You have the feathers of the coins. Okay. He's saying Kim had a really hard time believing that I was around. He's like, even a year after we started connecting and working together, he said she had huge hang-ups about really feeling good about me hanging around. And he said, I knew I had to do something really, really drastic. And he's saying they were doing renovations, and I decided to leave her something, he said, in a place where it wasn't usual. He decided to leave me something in, I have a garbage can, and it was missing a baseboard because we were in renovations, and the floor, the space between the floor and the wall, there was a little crack, and I was cleaning up, I was sweeping up, and then he said, I left a penny for her. Yeah, and I still have the penny. And it was an American penny, and I live in Canada. It was an American penny with his birth year on it, 1973. And he's saying, tell the people what you did, tell the people what you did. I lost it. I started bawling, I started crying, I was like, I felt so guilty, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you, on and on and on. He's laughing at me right now, we're completely over it. But yeah, it's very, when you finally get some sort of assurance or sign that somebody, that you've come to love and adore is actually real, or that somebody that you love and adored who is with you, you just wanted a sign, and as when you let go and you just kind of go on your way and you leave it alone, then they're able to show you the most amazing sign. That's what had happened to Paul. He's like, another sign that I really like to leave for people is rainbows. he said, I'm good at when somebody's thinking of me and they turn up to the sky, they're going to see a rainbow. And he said, the biggest sign of my presence is when you're thinking of me and you look up at the sky and it hasn't been raining and you see a rainbow. He says, I really like doing that. A rainbow and a jaybird are two of my most common signs. He says he doesn't like leaving pennies around because he says pennies kind of grown to be a little bit cliche, but okay, he's saying the best way to communicate with those that you've loved, you have not lost, that you've loved and you continue to love, is to go through that grieving process and then let it go. Because when you let it go, and he's not saying let it go like forget about it, he's just saying, take a breath, send to yourself, go on with, what you have to do for that day, kind of just leave it, because you are going to come back, because grieving is a process, but leave it. That window, that creates a window, he's saying a window of opportunity where loved ones can come in and really hold you. He says he's been gone a long time now. Like to people, he's been gone a long time now, but there is never a morning that he misses going to see his loved ones, sitting with them and saying good morning. Because he says the best part of any of this is that I can be everywhere or I can be in one place. He says he enjoys the moments, of course, more where he can just be in that one place. Because he says he can be like completely all in. It doesn't mean that he's not all in when he speaks to me right now and he's over with somebody else right now. It's like he just can be all in with one person because maybe sometimes they need him 110% at that moment. Where other moments it's just like a quick check-in, how's it going, how you doing, gonna send you a bird, okay, you see it, it's good to see you, and have a good day, sort of. He likes the phone calls that way. He's saying, I don't mean to create any sort of triggering, backs up, anger, frustration. He's a pretty easy guy when he lived, and he's still a pretty easy guy. And he tries not to take things so personal, but he's saying he has made a lot of connections in heaven, really important connections in heaven. And he says most of them, not all of them, but most of them have this real raw connection about, dying suddenly. And the communication in regards to that with their living family members is extremely private, extremely personal, he's saying. He's saying he appreciates the respect that people have given towards him, towards anybody he calls a friend, towards his family, with his grieving and their grieving process in that sudden death. He loves and adores and gives great thanks to those people who have done the same with his friends. And he's saying the connections that he's made, especially when he has created this group of spirits that work to really give back, that comfort and that support to those people who have comfort and supported, those people who have died suddenly. They form this group to especially say thank you and hold those people and love those people back up to standing in whatever they're going through, right? So he said this conversation isn't meant to create any sort of frustration for anybody, or any more doubt than what it has to or needs to, but he really, really needs to stand up for, he says there were a few people who read that comment and were like, our family relationships, isn't really anybody's business except for ours and theirs. And he says he would like people to respect that. And if you're listening, he's saying, if you're listening to Medium's channel, he says you need to take what feels right for you and nothing else. He says if it's turning into some sort of talk show TMZ article, he says you really need to take that in and really decide, is that how you want to remember this person? Does that really feel like this person would actually say something like that? Would they actually share, those intimate details with somebody and have it, on any sort of social media outlet? And he says, I don't think so. He says, not anybody that I know or that I have introduced to Kim or that I have decided to work with would ever do something like that. He says there's generalities that they share, there's general messages that they share about their passing, about how it's affected family and friends, but that it's really general. He says what he wants people to take away from this message, and he says, he says he's not going to accept comments on this video, so he's going to say no to comments on this video. But what he wants people to take away is the fact that they do reach out to any and everybody that they had a living, breathing connection with, that was like a brotherhood, a sisterhood, mother, son, girlfriend, dad, pops. He's like, that never goes away. And it's really, really intense when they first leave. It's really, really intense. He's like, it's almost like we go there, we try to communicate as best we can, we come back, and he says we pray to God, how can I do this better? How can I reach out to them better in a way that they will connect with me? And he's making me cry, and I see his chin wobbling with emotion. He's trying to hold back tears. He says, because I can't speak for anybody else, and right now maybe I can a little bit, but he said there were times where I was just on my knees and I prayed to God. Let them hear me. Let them, feel me. They don't need to see me. I just need them to feel me. And he said his pops was the first one that he really, really could connect with at that level. He says his pops is just like extremely, extremely, open to that. And he trusts that his boy is around him. Because he has to. It gave him peace. He says he learned a lot from his pops, and he still continues to do so. But yeah, he fell to his knees and he prayed to God, and he said, please let them hear me. So stop it. Ugh. When Paul gets emotional, he gets emotional, and I can feel it so intensely in my heart. And obviously for him, the comments stirred up, some raw emotions that he still feels, and he will continue to feel. He says, yes, he can see his family and, their higher selves, and he can connect with them in dream state and stuff, but there's something different about, the physical hug, holding them, playing with his, the kids in his family, nieces and nephews, and it's just, there's something different. He's always missed the physical, because there is physicality, but it's really different, and he can't be that physical hugger presence. he loves his hugs. And he says it's the one thing that if I could get back, I would just go there and hug everybody. Just hug them all one last time. So he's like, yes, end that there. I'm going to end it there, because if this continues, it's going to be like a cry fest. So that's what he wanted to say. Again, thank you for all your comments. I mean, we get ideas about what to channel when we see the comments. So we really enjoy it. We enjoy the support. And, you know, he's like, Chris has been really popular lately, and, you know, Corey is really popular. And yeah, he says it just, you know, we all want to still feel like we're doing something helpful, that we're doing something good. And then, you know, the comments, you guys just tell us we are doing something good, and we are sharing something useful that you guys can take away and use in your life. So yeah, he says he's still truly grateful. But he did have to come in and say, after talking with George, he did have to come in and do a channel. He says do a channel with Kim about explaining, you know, it's gently saying that that's my business. That's you know, their relationship with their family and friends and loved one, and it's not something to share on a social media platform. He says people get a lot of comfort with sharing grief on social media platforms, he's saying. And he understands that, because at that point, at that moment, they really need that community. But there's something to be said about sharing it on social media and sharing it and coming together as community with those relationships that were so close. So yeah, he's saying, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah, he's saying, thank you, Kim, for coming in on short notice to help me out. And like, no problem. He's like, he says we've taken a bit of time away from each other, but now it's back to work. So, and he's right, it's back to work. We have some projects that we're doing together. So yeah, I will chat at you guys later. He says, I'll talk to you soon. And I'm sending you so much love. And if you are in a state of grieving, if you are in a state of loss, he says, hit me up. He says, I can help with that, because I completely understand that. He says, call me. He says he left his phone number is really easy. He takes all calls. And he says, if you need to get up off your knees, he says, I'll pull you up. I'll pull you back. I'll lift you back up to standing, he's saying. So I'm going to end it there, and I hope everybody has a really, really awesome day, and we'll see when I can get another channeling. But it's been really nice to connect with you over a video instead of writing. Yeah, he's saying, I'm pulling Kim back to work, because there's, you know, we got a job to do, and it's not over yet. And no, it's never going to be over. Forget till the day I die. This is never going to be over. So it may take different forms, and my light's there. Woo. It may take different forms, but for now, you know, Paul's like beside me, and we're face to face with you, and we're sending you so much love, and, you know, have a really good day, and we love you, and we support you, and we're here for you with whatever you need. So with that, I will talk to you later. Love you, love you, love you. Have a really good day. Have a really good night, afternoon, morning, whenever you read this or watch this. And he's got me all flustered because I was like really emotional. Yeah. See ya. Ciao for now. Bye.